All right, welcome back to Totally Driven Radio. It's time, Nick. It's time for that first guest. And our first guest up, best-selling author. Best-selling author. He's done biographies on quite a few Hollywood actors, such as Mickey Rourke, Corey Haim, Roy Schneider. He's working on a new one on former Batman Forever star, The Doors star Val Kilmer. He has a book which you just heard an ad for, The Pugilist Son, which he written, was based off the movie The Pugilist Son. Let's welcome to Totally Driven Radio all the way across the pond, shall we say, in the UK, Mr. Saurav Dutt. How are you?
How's it going, guys? How are you?
You know, I'm doing good. I feel like we're best friends. We've been emailing for a month.
We have. I mean, all I can say is I'm on the same show as Robert David, so I'm absolutely over the moon.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you've been excited about that. I'm doing great. This is good to finally be able to talk to you.
Absolutely.
So you're like a machine because, you know, as we start like digging into you, like when we start doing our research, I was noticing this stuff last night, like you have your books that you wrote your biographies on. You have The Pugilist Son. You have a novel, An Orchard in the Snow. And then you have, like, a comic book, a graphic novel that you're working on as well. Like, how do you find the time to do all this?
Well, I think the only way to do it is if you don't do it first, someone else is going to think of it first. They're going to get there first. I mean, like you said, I am a machine. It's just when an idea comes to you, you just got to act on it. And the way I am, I mean, I've always loved films. I've always loved comic books. I've always loved writing fiction. So you've got to make the time. And, I want to start now. I don't want to be thinking when I'm 65 or 70 that I should have done these things. It's better to do them now. And that way, you know what, there's the best thing. I like making the time because there's people out there that want to read what I have to produce, and that's what satisfies me. So that's why I make the time best.
So, well, let me ask you this. Do you think with, of course, naturally the explosion of the Internet, it's made it easier for you as well to do all these projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just got to look at social media. I mean, the way you can connect to people that are interested in what you have to say is amazing. It's like something that's just never been there before. I mean, just take Mickey Rourke and Corey Haim fans. I mean, Mickey Rourke's obviously, he's been around, he's been doing his stuff for 30 years. Corey Haim, unfortunately, no longer with us as well. He had been working for most of his life. And I just did not realize the amount of people out there that are so interested in reading about the lives of both of these guys. Not just them, Val Kilmer as well, all these other guys, Eric Roberts, Corey Feldman. And the Internet connects you with all these people that are out there, and wherever they are, whether they're in the States, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in Alaska, anywhere, and the Internet connects you to all these potential readers, and it's so awesome to see people interested in what you have to say. So, yeah, basically, the answer to your question is yes. Internet has just opened up so many avenues for authors, for writers, for filmmakers. Name it. I mean, the Internet is it's the best way to reach people.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the way the social media world has exploded and things like Amazon. I mean, Amazon.com. I remember when it first started, like whenever it was, like 15 years ago, it was like this little thing. It was just like books. And they actually used to have an auction site on there. And now it's like they have everything. It's like you can buy, I'm surprised you can't buy cars on Amazon.com yet.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with writers, with authors, I mean, it's like if you're not on Amazon now, it's almost like you don't exist. I mean, Amazon has just become this beast. It's just exploded, just like what you're saying. And Amazon is the way to connect. Someone buys a Mickey Rourke movie, if someone wants to buy a Val Kilmer movie, they immediately can see, hey, someone's written about the guy. They can check out the history. They can look at the reviews. They can download chapters. So you're right. I mean, Amazon is just this mammoth machine that is connecting everyone the world over. And, for writers, if you're not on Amazon, it's like you don't exist. I mean, there's Twitter as well, there's Facebook, there's social media, but Amazon is, it's just exploded, and it is the best vehicle for authors, for writers. It's the way to show yourself to the world, and, what can you say? The bigger it gets, the better it is.
Now, I think you're right, because Amazon's really exploded in even just the last 2 years. Not only did they, they have the e-books and you can, put your regular books on there, but you can sell your short stories on there. And I just read an article that they're even opening up fan fiction to writers who want to sell their fan fiction, and it's being monitored by people from the CW, people from HBO, and they are taking good ideas from those fan fiction sites and incorporating them into their, what they're actually putting on TV and in the movies.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely right. I mean, I think, it's always the same, whether you're an aspiring author and you're just starting off, or you've done 10 novels and you're in your 10th year, quality always rises to the top. And with this fan fiction, I mean, right now they're doing the Vampire Diaries, stuff like that, and they're just testing it out. And like you're saying, they're being picked up. But can you imagine if in a few years or 6 months from now, it's Marvel that opens up the rights, and suddenly people can do fan fiction on things like Batman, Superman, X-Men, all these Marvel characters. I mean, the doors that could open for authors if those rights are opened up is amazing. So, I mean, like, if someone's out there and they think, right, you know what, I can do the next great Batman story, if those rights are opened up into future, that can happen, and someone can pick that up. Because, because of the way that the internet is now, people from HBO, from all the studios, from Lionsgate, Weinstein Brothers, whoever, they are watching like hawks, and they love seeing great ideas coming up, and they will grab onto them. So, yeah, you're right. Opening up fan fiction in that way is brilliant for authors.
Now, the first book you wrote was your Mickey Rourke biography. What made you choose Mickey Rourke to actually be your first book, and what made you choose him?
Cool. Yeah. Well, Mickey Rourke. I've been following Mickey Rourke movies when it was unfashionable to say you're a fan of Mickey Rourke. I mean, when I was young, basically, this was a time where I'd go into my video store when they still used to exist, and you'd go there and there'd be a Mickey Rourke movie which no one would want to see, no one would want to rent, and I'd think to myself, why the hell do people not watch Mickey Rourke movies today? And this was in the 1990s. This was after he had left acting. He had gone into boxing, and I thought to myself, look, here's a guy who's unbelievably talented, he's done some of the best movies of the 1980s, and yet people seem to have not ignored him, but they just seem to just let him go by the wayside in a way. And I thought to myself, I know there's people like me out there in the world who love Mickey Rourke as much as I do, admire his work, and want to see the guy get back on top. So really I thought, look, let me write a book just for those fans, for me and those fans. And there's certain internet communities like the Mickey Rourke Circle on Facebook and on IMDb. These are like diehard Mickey Rourke fans who kept him going in a way in the public conscious when, Hollywood wasn't really that interested. And when I wrote the book, Standalone, I thought, you know what, this is for them. So with Mickey Rourke, I mean, you've got a guy who, he's not like many actors in Hollywood. He's not a guy who's going to toe the party line. He's not a guy who's going to say what the suits want to hear. He speaks the truth. He's honest to a fault. And he'll talk about the system. He'll talk about acting. He'll talk about, it's a cautionary tale with him. And who else does that? Who else has done that? You can only think, Marlon Brando, guys like that. Who else has been that outspoken and stuck true to their values? And that's what Mickey Rourke is. So basically, I wrote the story and I wrote the book because I wanted to reach out to those fans that appreciated, like me, that this is a guy that needed to come back on top. Fortunately, he did. It was Sin City, it was Man on Fire, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and then, of course, The Wrestler in 2009. So thankfully, he came back on top, and that's why we're happy. And that's why, I'm doing the follow-up now, Hollywood Outlaw, and that is basically, it goes deeper because the audience for this book, man, it took off. It was a runaway success. I mean, I was amazed how many people were out there who were that interested in hearing about the Mickey Rourke story. I mean, There's lots of people who are like, you know, Mickey Rourke, he's a great actor, he's a cool guy, but how many really want to know what the guy went through, what the guy had to go through to get to where he was, and those years were of struggle, you know? So I wanted to get into that, and that's why I'm writing this follow-up.
So when you write that book and the new one you're writing about Mickey, did you get to talk to him at all and interview him about anything or anybody that's related to him?
Yeah, I mean, the first book basically came about at a time where it was a lot easier to get access to Mickey Rourke. This was around just before Sin City. So these interviews were done usually like on the webinar way, because obviously, you know, there were opportunities to go to Los Angeles, but I didn't get the chance. But I managed to interview him through the internet, basically, in that way. The other thing I wanted to do is about the first book, and one of the main reasons it did well was I wasn't afraid to go and look into the films that a lot of people haven't heard of, but they were great films. You know, they were underrated movies. Like there's a HBO movie called Thicker Than Blood that Mickey Rourke, you know, he plays a priest of all things. But how many people really know about that movie? It's an amazing movie, but not a lot of people know about it. So one of the things I set out to do was, look, let me try and find the people who worked with him on these films, these lesser-known movies, and I managed to interview those people, get comments from them, and, you know, those are the films and those are the roles you don't hear about. So that's one of the main reasons that book took off. Everyone who's emailed me since or got in touch who's enjoyed that first book has said that it went into an era that, you know, a lot of people forget about and a lot of fans are really interested about, because there were some great movies then. There was Francis Ford Coppola's The Rainmaker. That was one of Matt Damon's first movies, and Mickey Rourke was in it. It was amazing, but not a lot of people remember it. Then there's the one I mentioned, Thicker Than Blood. There was a film with Stephen Baldwin. It was called Full Time. You know, there was a sequel to 9.5 Weeks even. I mean, the films, you know, they weren't the most amazing movies, but Mickey Rourke always was. So, you know, first thing I wanted to set out to do was let me interview him, then interview the people who worked on these lesser-known films. And not just that, but it included some transcripts from interviews that Mickey Rourke did to promote The Wrestler. So I managed to put in a few things that weren't interviewed or shown in the public. So, yeah, it was a combination of all of those things to make that first book as good as it could be.
Now, how about your second book was about Roy Schneider, actor from Jaws.
Yeah, Roy Scheider is a guy who just, you know, everyone who's seen a Roy Scheider movie or Jaws or French Connection knows what a great actor he was, you know. I mean, he was on Sequest, he was on French Connection, he was on 52 Pickup, which is a great Elmer Leonard-based movie in 1986. With Roy Scheider, you know, he's a guy, again, he was so popular in the 1970s, sort of fell away in the public eye, but he was always working, he was always making great movies. When I wrote the book, it was not long before he actually passed away. And I actually wrote to the guy personally asking for an autograph, and he sent me back a personalized one. And, you know, it just shows that Roy Scheider, he was always the kind of guy he was very anti-Hollywood, you know. He was just a leading man. He was a character actor, and you just identified with his everyman status. So when I wrote that book, again, that was more from the heart, because Roy Scheider fans, you know, they're out there, but they're not as in big a number as the Mickey Rourke fans or the Corey Haim fans. So that was one for the heart. And, you know, and anyone who's seen Jaws, I mean, you can't think of anyone else as Chief Brody. I don't know about you. I mean, that was supposed to be Charlton Heston. I mean, I can't visualize Charlton Heston fighting a shark, but I can visualize Roy Scheider doing it. So, yeah that's what was behind that one.
Well, the one I really want to talk to you about is the book you wrote about Corey Haim.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, with Corey Haim, go on.
Was he still alive when you wrote this?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2007. This was just before the A&E 2 Corey show came on with Corey Feldman. And it was a great show. It was a reality TV show over 2 seasons, and it was around the time that Lost Boys 2 was being made. So I was writing this book then, and I was doing it very, very slowly, and I was so happy Corey Haim was back in the public light. I mean, the guy had gone through so much trouble, you know, everyone knows that. But this was a time where he was really picking things up. I mean, he was in Crank 2. He was on A&E, the A&E 2 Corey show. He was back with Corey Feldman. He was on Larry King. We saw more of Corey Haim. And then between 2007 and when he ultimately passed away in 2010, I was writing the book. Just as it was coming to an end, unfortunately, Corey Haim died. So it really got made during that whole time. And then, even to this day, Corey Feldman's released an amazing book just recently called Choreography. Right. But no one had written a book on Corey Haim. And this was a guy who, you just got to to rewind back to 1987, 1988. This guy was a Justin Bieber of the late 80s, along with Corey Feldman. So popular, a very underrated actor, and in some of the best movies of that era. You've got Robert Davi later on from The Goonies. The Goonies, Lost Boys, License to Drive, Dream a Little Dream. These are just iconic movies. So, I had to do this one for the Corey Haim fans because I thought the guy's passed away, Unfortunately, there was a lot of rubbish said about him when he passed away. He died because of a lot of accumulation, a lot of bad things that happened to his body because of previous drug use. But when he did die, it wasn't because he was still snorting himself to a grave, not at all. And unfortunately, the press and the media sort of focus on the negatives. So what I wanted to do with the book, which is called License to Dream, was focus on the positives. It was too easy to write the bad things about Corey Haim. But it was, what I wanted to do was set out to make a book on the positives. And you know what? It's still surprising to me to this day, but that Corey Haim book is more popular than the Mickey Rourke book by about 10-1.
Wow. Yeah, actually, we had Corey Feldman on back in August, and we talked a lot about Corey Haim, and it was really eye-opening, and which actually he made a point to correct me, because I had said, his death due to drugs, and he made a point to say, no, it was not. It was exactly what he said. It was years of drug use caught up with him, but he was not using drugs at that time. Actually, I just met Corey 2 weeks ago for the first time in person. He's got with this book that just came out now. I got it. I have to read it, but it seems like I'd love to see what he has to really say too about Corey in his book. Imagine.
Yeah, I think
when I was getting ready to do the Corey Feldman interview, a lot of stuff that I looked up and I found on Corey Haim, it seemed like his life was a very depressed life.
Yeah, Corey Haim was he was a victim of his environment. He was plucked from Canada, and he was thrown into the limelight, and he was expected to basically be someone in an industry when he hadn't realized himself who he was. He was young, he was growing up, he was already on a set where you had drink, where you had drugs. He was expected to be a leading movie star and to cope with fame. And, agents, unfortunately, I'm sure you've heard, the horrible realities about the child molestation that he went through, as well as Feldman. So think about the fact that Haim had to deal with that, and he wasn't equipped to deal with it. His parents were divorced. They weren't with him. He was in LA by himself, which he had admitted was the worst thing for him. And he was just thrown into the limelight, expected to be a teen star, teen heartthrob. He wanted to be a serious actor. But then the older he grew, the more the industry couldn't accept him. They wanted to accept him and pigeonhole him as a cute, lovable teen pin-up. But Corey Haim wanted to be a serious actor, and the industry wasn't that bothered. And by the time the 1990s came along, and problems, and Corey Haim got older, and he wanted to do more older adult material, unfortunately, suddenly the industry wasn't interested. And, Corey Haim, unfortunately, couldn't deal with it. He was at heart still that 15-year-old that had become popular. Even as he got older, he had no way to deal. He was not equipped to deal with the ups and the downs. And, Corey Feldman, to his credit, he managed to sort things out very quickly in the early 90s. But Haim, unfortunately, he was literally a ship adrift. And that, you're right, it's a depressing environment that he grew up in, that he fell from the top in, and there was no support. Hollywood didn't want to support him. They didn't even run a tribute in the year that he passed at the Academy Awards. Right. So Yeah, he grew up in this industry where he suddenly was put on the platform and become made to be so famous and so idolized that no one prepared him for the other side, and that's the ugly side. And that's what Corey Feldman managed to get through, what he's gone through in his book, and what I tried to get through in my book. Because License to Dream, I took the positive of a guy like Corey Haim, who was shown, the bright side of the tunnel, and no one prepared him for the other side. And unfortunately, when you're a child teen star and you're like 8 years old, no one's going to teach you that. They don't take you by the hand in Hollywood and point out the hurdles. They just want to make you money quickly. They want to get you on the magazine covers quickly. They don't really care about your welfare, unfortunately.
No,
so that's what the book went into.
Now, the latest book I guess you've done is The Pugilist Son.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. So go on.
The one thing which we were saying before you came on, I said I thought it was like usually like you would write a book and you would hope it was made into a movie, and you kind of did the opposite, where you took a movie that was made and took your story from that and wrote a book. Is that what you did?
Yeah, let me go into that. So it was quite an interesting thing. I'd already been thinking, basically, my first novel is going to be releasing at the end of this year, and that deals with issues like homelessness. But in the background, I had always had this story in my head, this boxing story about an ex-prize fighter that was pushing his son too hard to follow in his footsteps. And then one day I came across this short trailer for an independent movie which hasn't been picked up, which hasn't been pushed, hasn't been promoted, hasn't even been released. And the story was exactly the same as the one that had been in my head. And it was called The Pugilist Son. And I thought to myself, you know what, here's a guy who's made this story, which is exactly like the one I thought of, but he hasn't been able to distribute it. And I thought to myself, there's a story in here, I know I can write it. And literally within a week, I just wrote that story. It has nothing to do with the film other than the title and the general storyline, but it's something I'm very proud of. And I approached the Muhammad Ali Center based in Louisville, Kentucky, and I asked them, have a read of this story, what do you think? And I would like to donate all proceeds of sales from that short ebook to the Muhammad Ali Center. And they said, sure. So, I'm happy to say that all the proceeds go to them. But it's a warm-up for my main novel, which is going to be releasing at the end of this year. Now,
and that is called, is that The Orchard in the Snow?
Yeah, an orchid in the snow, and that's basically it's a drama. It's dealing with an estranged mother trying to reunite with her daughter. It's based in Manhattan, in New York, and it deals with homelessness. And I think it's going to be a book that's is really going to be interesting to a lot of people. And and then there's the graphic novel as well, which is another big thing.
Wow, and then you have a book also coming out on Val Kilmer.
Yeah. So, there's very few actors in Hollywood who I think, they've got that chameleon ability. Mickey Rourke has always been one of those people who just blends into his roles. And Val Kilmer from day one has been one of those people. He just, there's a few of these actors in Hollywood. There's Val Kilmer, there's Eric Roberts, guys like Mickey Rourke. They just blend into their roles. They're different from one role to another. And Val Kilmer is that guy. He's one of those people. And with him, I thought to myself, again, here's a guy who's so popular, but who's really written about him? In fact, they've done the opposite. They've said loads of horrible things about him. He's immensely talented. He was in Batman Forever. He was in The Doors. He was in The Salton Sea. These are great movies, but unfortunately, people seem to have labeled him with this, this really stupid label that he's difficult to work with, and it sort of followed him everywhere, unfortunately. So there wasn't really a good book about him. There wasn't a good story about Val Kilmer, and I thought
right.
This guy needs a story to be told. I mean, he was the youngest member of Juilliard Acting Academy to be accepted. He's made so many amazing movies, and whether it's Tombstone, whether it's The Doors, he changes from one role to the next. And I thought to myself, again, here's a guy, we've got to tell this guy's story. He's an amazing actor. And, just already from the feedback I've had from, Facebook groups and groups on the internet, people want to see a good Val Kilmer biography. And I think after they read my new Mickey Rourke biography, they'll realize how cool my book could be. So that's going to be for spring 2014.
So are you writing all these different stories at the same time? I mean, or do you work on one and then go to the next one?
Yeah, well, with the biographies, because I mean, I've been like a film maniac from as long as I can remember. I mean, with writing biographies, if I get latched onto someone I really like, I can just write about them. With Mickey Rourke, I wrote that in about 2010. And I wasn't expecting to do a follow-up. There was a lot of demand for it. And I thought, let me make a little companion ebook to it. But, it got so popular, and I started writing this new one that all of a sudden it came about. And I like to do projects side by side. The graphic novel, which is based on The Expendables 3 and all these action movies everyone loves, the Van Damme, Seagal, Wesley Snipes movies. I did that on the side because I do artwork as well. And, I like juggling tasks. I like multitasking. I like doing different things at once. And any creative person will tell you they love opening up different Pandora's boxes. They love having different projects on the go, and they can pick and choose what they want to do. And, I've got the graphic novel going. I'm also making a short movie called The Wind Sculpture, which is based on civil rights. And that's going to be going viral by the end of the year. I mean, a lot of civil rights organizations and Black American organizations have expressed interest in that as well. So, yeah, I'm going to be turning to filmmaking next.
Wow. You are unreal. You are truly an inspirational person. You're not crazy. You are totally driven. How about that?
Thank you. And I always want to be totally driven. And if there's any authors out there that are thinking, I can't do this, this is going to take too long, forget it, get started. That's where it starts. You just got to start it.
Now, being an author, and now the new big thing in the world of books is naturally ebooks and the Kindles and the Nooks, stuff like that. What are your feelings on all those? Which do you prefer? Do you prefer ebooks or do you prefer an actual book to hold in your hands?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty old school. I mean, I love softback. I love a book in my hands. I love the cover. I love knowing it's in my hands. It feels more like you digest the book. I mean, and I think only people who read like maniacs know exactly what I mean. Not taking anything away from the electronic thing, because end of the day, if you're like me, you've got too many books in your house and it's taking up too much space. It's not practical. But with electronic books, the idea of being able to just click and download is amazing. It's giving so many new authors, so many self-published independent authors avenues. And, I'm sure you know about how many guys and girls have done Kindle books and they've sold, whether it's about vampires, whether it's John Locke, for example. They're just attracting so much attention, I mean, this is how, anyone you think of, whether it's 50 Shades of Grey started, it just starts by a quick download because people are on the go. They've got their Nook or their Kindle or whatever, and they just want to be entertained. They want to download something for a very cheap price or for free, and they want to read something, finish it in a day, and be able to file that away. So, with me, yes, I'm old school. I like the softback. I like the paperbacks. But, I think the future is going to be both. I don't think the paperback will ever become extinct. I think the electronic book is going to keep, it's going to keep growing. This is the biggest market for new authors, but no way, the paperback's not going to be dying anytime soon.
Interesting. I hope you're right, because I like to hold a book myself. I have not grasped the whole ebook world, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. To me, there's a huge difference between the kind of books that you want in your hands and the kind of books that kind of you were talking about, where you can just sort of download them, read them, and sort of, I don't want to say forget about them, because that's not the case, but, you file them away, and you don't give much thought to the storyline, because I'm also a huge proponent of, books in hand, but it really just depends on the book and the author and, sort of the significance of the book, too. There's a lot of stuff that you can just sort of read and then put away when you're done. And then there's other things I think that are nice to keep around.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about that is authors have to realize that not everybody is, they haven't jumped on the ebook bandwagon. You know, a lot of people just haven't got a Nook, they haven't got a Kindle, they haven't spent the money to buy these things. I mean, a good example was I saw a book on Amazon about Levon Helm from the band who passed away recently. And it was a great little book, but it was on Kindle and it wasn't on paperback. And I thought to myself, well, I don't have a Kindle. I'm not going to go buy one just to get this. And the other time I saw the Playboy interviews, for example. So one thing they've got on Amazon is they've got all the Playboy interviews, John Lennon, Robert Evans, John Cassavetes, all these guys. And you can't get them on download. You can't download them as ebooks. You have to have a Kindle. And not everyone's going to go out and buy a Kindle. I mean, they're not cheap yet anyway. And, you know, a lot of people want to have it in their hands. They want to go through them. And, you know, there's a value to it. People are a bit, you know, fixated. Even people say you judge a book by its cover. Well, sometimes, that's always true, I believe. But one thing about that is you want the cover in your hands as well, you know? So you've got to have the paperback sometimes.
Well, and books are, I mean, not to, you know, get all poetic about it, but some books are beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, like I said, I don't mean to get all sentimental about it, but I collect older books, and I've only have 2 in my collection now, but I have a book that's, I mean, it's 118 years old on, like, hand-pressed French paper, and it's just, forget about reading it, just looking at it is amazing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. I mean, suppose you've got a lot of the horror fiction fans would say to themselves, would like to have a hardback exclusive of Bram Stoker's Dracula, or would I like to have only the Kindle version? I bet they'd say they'd want the first one because the artwork for some of these books is just amazing. Like you said, it's on that beautiful paper, and, you know, the artwork is so amazing. You just want to have it in your hand. So, you know, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, sometimes with the electronic books, I mean, take, for example, all the books I've written, or Mickey Rourke, etc. A lot of them, more than I thought, were actually paperbacks being bought. You know, it's a ratio between paperbacks to electronic versions is probably 5-1, and that surprised me. You know, so people are still very, you know, they're still very into their softbacks.
Right, now, let's tell everybody where they can get your books. Let's sell some books here.
I mean, at the moment my publisher is making a brand new website for me, so the best way to follow my books is to go straight to Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk. Or you can follow me on Twitter, that's SD_SAURAV, or you can go straight to Facebook where I'm there as well. And these are available on Amazon, they're available on Lulu.com, they're on Barnes & Noble, and they're on Waterstones. But I will be having a brand new website which is coming out in the next month or so. But the best way for now is to either go Amazon.com or to follow me on Twitter. Got over 10,000 followers right now. That just goes to show how many Mickey Rourke fans, Corey Haim fans, Val Kilmer fans, Corey Feldman fans, Eric Robert fans, they're all out there and they all want great books from them. Just going to drop in actually that I'm thinking of doing biographies on Ray Liotta and Andy Garcia and Eric Roberts. So if there's an audience out there, let Totally Driven Radio know, let me know, because I'm more than happy to start writing them.
Very nice, very nice. Now, real quick too, it's like when you're doing these biographies, do you need to get permission to write them about these people, or?
Well, if you're going to be basically, if they're biographies, no. As long as you're not taking an axe to them, you're not going to get in trouble. If you're going to start basically talking about your subject, anybody basically can write about anyone as long as it's not going to be legally, it's not going to defame them. It's not going to be some form of slander, and you're not making up rubbish. Like believe me, it would have been unfortunately, it would have been so easy to write a book about Corey Haim, for example, and saying horrible, horrible things about him. And unfortunately, there's blogs, there's websites, they've said a lot of horrible things about him. So that's one of the reasons I wrote the book as well. I mean, who on earth wants to read this rubbish? You want to read something positive about the guy. So, you know, he's passed away. He had a great life. He made some great movies. Who wants to hear this rubbish about him? So the answer to your question is you don't need any permission as such, but if you're going to be making stupid claims and horrible, defamatory remarks, then yeah, you're going to get in trouble. So, you know, and there are some authors out there, and they're very clever. There's one guy, I'm not going to name him, but he's quite famous, unfortunately, but he specializes in writing books about people who've died. Laurence Olivier, Marlon Brando, and he writes the most awful things about them because they're not alive to sue him back, basically.
Okay. I see. A little sneaky there. You know.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, I mean... Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a critic or you're a blogger. It's easy to write negative things about anybody or anyone. It's a lot harder to write in the positive. So even with Mickey Rourke, I mean, there are a lot of people who go, yeah, 9.5 Weeks was great. Yeah, Rumblefish was great. But he made a whole lot of rubbish before he made Sin City. You know, there's a whole 15, 20 years of nonsense. That's not actually true. As I said before, he's made great movies, little gems in that era. You just got to go find them out. Same with Corey Haim. I mean, he made great movies too. I mean, after The Lost Boys, I mean, a lot of people don't know about them, but the Corey Haim fans who really admire his work went out and got them. And the same goes with Corey Feldman as well.
Right.
Well, I think too that these guys, they get a lot of flack for these movies, and not every movie is an Academy Award-winning movie. You know what I mean? You have to take them for what they are. Speaking of Mickey Rourke, I watched a Mickey Rourke movie the other day, and all the reviews said that it was awful. It was one of the worst movies, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. It was, I'm trying to remember the name, but it was about a jazz musician, and I think Megan Fox was the female lead, and she was like an angel.
Yeah, Passion play.
Absolutely. But his performance was, I mean, it was good in the movie. Yeah. You have to take it for what it is, not what, you know, it could be or what you wish it was.
I mean, look at, one of the guys who Mickey Rourke admires so much is Michael Cimino, and he made Heaven's Gate, and now that's being re-released as a director's cut on Blu-ray, and people are loving it. And this is a film which back in 1980 ruined a whole studio. People said the guy was finished, he had made The Deer Hunter, they thought he was rubbish, they thought the film was terrible, and now after all this time they're admiring just how great that movie actually was. So with Mickey Rourke, you know, fortunately, the man is back on top, and people are going back and looking at the older movies. But even with stuff like Passion Play, I mean, Passion Play, it's no Hamlet, but it's not a bad film. It's got Bill Murray in it. It's got moments of which you can enjoy. And, you know, the real Mickey Rourke fans will admire that. And, you know, he's done some bad films, there's no doubt about it, and I think most fans know exactly what those films are. But Passion Play ain't one of them.
No, it absolutely is. And to be honest with you, another one that sort of gets a bad rep, and I don't know if it's because Clash of the Titans or whatever, but it's the Immortals. And the reason I like his performance in that so much is exactly what you said earlier on. He sort of takes over these roles. You're not watching Mickey Rourke play these roles. You're watching, you know, King Hyperion or whoever he's playing. He does an amazing job sort of just absorbing the character and then bringing it back out to you.
Well, you know, Immortals was a very good movie for what it was. But films like those, you know, you've got amazing special effects, you've got all this action, but if you haven't got a good villain, if you haven't got a good actor who can play a good villain, then your movie hasn't got much to stand on. And Mickey Rourke, like he was a Whiplash in Iron Man 2, he was a brilliant King Hyperion. And, you know, in all the press that he was doing for that movie, he was saying that, yes, this was a very standard villain role, but what I did was I tried to make it interesting. I tried to do these little touches that made him more than a two-dimensional villain. And that's what the Mickey Rourkes and the Val Kilmers and the Eric Roberts do with their roles. They take something standard and they make something memorable out of it. So you've watched the film, you finished the movie, and later on you think to yourself, you know what, Mickey Rourke really made an impression in that. You know, I remembered what he did. You know, there's another movie of his which didn't get much attention, but it's called 13 with Jason Statham. And he's in that movie, and Mickey Rourke is fantastic. You know, he's not in it for long, but he does a great job in it.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, everybody go to Amazon.com and look up Saurav. It's Saurav, Dutt, D-U-T-T. And buy his books. He's got his biographies up on there, and his other books will be on there as well very soon. And follow him on Twitter at, what is it, SD_?
Saurav.
There you go. Saurav, it was great talking to you.
Well, yeah, it's great talking to you guys as well. What I'm going to be doing very shortly is putting up on Twitter the brand new cover of the Hollywood Outlaw, the story of Mickey Rourke. Also going to be going on Facebook. I would recommend that there is an amazing, amazing Mickey Rourke online fan club. It's on Facebook. It's called Mickey Rourke Circle. And anyone who likes Mickey Rourke needs to go to that because it's an amazing website by an amazing group of people that really love Mickey Rourke. And, you know,
yeah, actually,
with Corey
that's how we found you, because my wife is a huge Mickey Rourke fan, and she found you in the Mickey Rourke Circle. I'm always hearing about the Mickey Rourke Circle, and my wife says hello, so there you go.
I say hello back. I mean, Mickey Rourke Circle, I thought I knew that all there was to know about Mickey Rourke. I thought I'd seen all the articles, I thought I'd seen all the pictures, but they still managed to find more and more. So please go check that out, because I'm on there, and that's the only place you're going to be able to see the Hollywood Outlaw cover first. It's going to get its first showing on the Mickey Rourke Circle.
Nice, very cool. All right, Saurav, well, you'll have to keep in touch with us. We're friends on Twitter. We have emails. We'll be emailing, and when your new books come out, let's come back on and promote them for you.
Definitely, thanks. And I want to just say hello to Robert Davi later on, because he is an amazing actor. You don't need me to tell you this, but I have so many of his movies. He is one great actor, and he's an amazing singer. Who would have thought that? But yeah, hi to Robert Davi, and thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being a guest, and we'll talk soon.
Take care.
All right, you too.
All right.
Bye.
All right, everybody, that was Saurav Dutt, the author of many, many biographies, cool biographies, and actually we just ordered a couple of his books off Amazon right now, so you should as well. All right, let's take a commercial break, and when we come back on the flip side, Frank is actually on hold. We'll get Frank on the phone, and hopefully we're supposed to be having George from Heaven's Edge calling in. Hopefully he'll be calling in soon. So, yeah, let's take a commercial break. See you in a few minutes.